Greetings and thank you for joining us for the 62nd episode of DC Animation with Spencer and friends. This is an LMG Podcast Production. Today, I'm joined by a dear friend.
Hello, it's Cassidy.
Yes, Cassidy is back with us. So glad you could be here. Real quick, I know the people have heard you before, but could you just remind the people real quick about your DC consumption? What DC you like, what DC you consume, what DC you know?
Of course, my primary source of consumption for DC was Smallville in my youth and continues to be Smallville. It's something I rewatch frequently. Big lover of the Superman character in film and television show. I've also been a big fan of Gotham and a lot of the Batman productions as well.
Well, then, that works out.
A little bit.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you for joining us on this journey through DC animation. Today's film is Batman and Superman Battle of the Super Sons, released October 7th, 2022. I will read a synopsis in my own words and then we're just going to talk about it. So, we open with Superman's origin story. Krypton is about to be destroyed, and his parents put him in the spaceship and send him to Earth. However, this time, Starro ends up hitching a ride. Then we comic book montage through Superman's life up to his son being a teenager. And his son kind of thinks his parents are boring. Lois explains the importance of reporting to John using video games as a point of reference. Clark comes home and, he and John start choring because they're on the farm. John tells Clark that he misses having him home, and the two of them see the watchtower falling out of orbit. It was hit by some debris, and Superman is able to fix it. Unfortunately, Green Arrow gets got by whatever made its way to the watchtower. John is sad that his dad didn't make his game, and he ends up striking out. Clark attempts to talk to him, but he ends up running away, and his heat vision manifests. Clark tells John that he's Superman, and the boy is excited. Like, he's just, all over himself about it. They go on a fly, and Superman tells John about the importance of being Superman. They make their way to Gotham City to watch Batman handle the Penguin and some of his goons. And they go to the Batcave, and John meets Robin, who's kind of a dick, but not Dick. Uh, Robin attempts to get John to realize more powers by almost killing him, and Batman lets Superman know that he has had no communication with the Watchtower. Robin finds out that the Teen Titans voted to keep him off the squad, and John meets Robin's pet cow. Batman and Superman peep that something is off after talking to Green Arrow, so Superman drops John off back in Smallville, and they go to investigate. Martian Manhunter pops up and hits them with the Starro infection. The next day, John is getting bullied for being a nerd, and Starro Batman tries to infect Robin, but when that doesn't work, he just tries to kill him. Robin survives and realizes that everyone has been infected except for John. So Robin pulls up, as John is being reprimanded for the fight with Melvin, the bully. Robin picks him up just as Starro Lois shows up to try to infect him. John is able to use his heat vision to disinfect Lois. They make their way to the Fortress of Solitude, where they run into Crypto, who doesn't know who they are, so he attacks them. The built-in Jor-El AI is able to get Crypto to chill out and explain Starro to them. John uses the ancillary information about ants and being a reporter that he got from his parents earlier in the movie to determine that they need to destroy the main Starro to destroy the hive mind. Lois goes to see Jimmy, and he gives her the idea to go see the president so that, he can warn the world about Starro. Robin and John use Superman's baby ship to fly to the Watchtower, and upon arrival, they are met by several Starro heroes and they are captured. Meanwhile, Lois makes a deal with the president, Lex Luthor. He will make the announcement to the world if she agrees to support him in his next election. Starro explains to Robin and John that he plans to take over the universe, and Robin really offended him. So he has Green Arrow kill him. But John takes the arrow. Luckily, his invulnerability kicks in, and so he and Robin get to throwing hands with the Star Road heroes. Lex gets on the TV and tells everyone that it is time because he has already been Starroad. And Lois, peeped that pretty early. So she gets on the TV and tells John that Starro can be hurt by heat. John hits the Starroad Martian Manhunter and, it knocks him out because he's got the heat vision. But Starro is still attached to him. Robin and John go to look for Big Starro, and they end up in a boss fight with their Starroad fathers. They are able to win the fight, but Starro, now he's too big. They decide to push the watchtower into the atmosphere in hopes that Big Starro will burn up. The ship is knocked out. I'm sorry. Let me start that over. That was terrible. Uh, they take all of the knocked out heroes and ship them back to Earth, and they get the Watchtower to enter the atmosphere. Starro attacks them, but he is hurt by the re-entry, and all of the infections, stop, and those people are being released. Robin and John accept their fate, but Superman shows up to save them right on time. After some hugs and kind words, Starro is revealed to have survived. They are able to send Starro blasting off again and win the day. Everyone attends John's next baseball game. Damian declares that they are the Super Sons and confirms that John is still unable to fly. And that's the movie. So, Cassidy, what'd you think of the movie?
I will say, out of the movies I have watched for this series thus far, this one got more out loud laughs at me out of me than some of the others. And it started off strong with that strikeout scene and the dramatic passing of the ball over the bat. I laughed so hard at that, and I think that set the tone for the rest of the movie that I was about to watch. And it was a really fun. I don't want to say it was a silly time, but it was a bit of a fun, silly. It's a couple of teen boys, preteen boys
Yeah.
running the show. So I got a lot more giggles out of this one than I had a lot of the other ones, and had fun with that for sure.
Okay. Okay. Good. 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 So, how did you feel about the animation in this movie?
I was at some moments I really liked it, and at other moments I wasn't eating it up too much. At some moments it felt a little jarring for me, and it was more of the, still background and having things moving on the front of them. The styles felt too different for me. Um, and I don't know so much if that's me looking at it through a critical eye or the eye of someone that just hasn't watched an animation like this, that I don't know if I'm appreciating it properly. There were a couple of cool wraparound shots that happened. So you could see it from an angle, different angles in one shot, and I thought that did look cool. But I don't know if I like it more than the other styles that I have seen thus far.
Okay. I am not a fan of this animation at all.
Okay.
I don't hate it. And sometimes it can be like really beautifully done. But this animation in general, I am not a huge fan of. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that it kind of ruins the fight choreography for me. Like,
I made a note of a fight moment that I didn't like because of the animation.
yeah,
Um,
like it's not it doesn't it's not smooth. Like I'm not gonna say that it feels like stop motion, but it is never as buttery smooth as other styles of animation when it comes to the fighting period. Like they can't. It doesn't happen.
right. I very specifically made note with the fighting time when Who punched Batman when Jonathan punched Batman and like blood comes out of his mouth. It just did not look good. I was like, what the heck was that? That was my note. I was like, what even just happened? Like it
Yeah.
wasn't a cool like, oh, blood's there. Like I was just like, that was weird, and I don't know if that could have looked better, but I really feel like it might have. I did
Yep.
like the lasers. I thought the lasers were animated beautifully. I
Yep.
liked those. But yeah, I made a note specifically of like a fight moment because I was just like, okay, mm, I don't know about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't love it.
I
Um,
also, if I may, thought some of the animation with the main characters themselves felt a little lazy. Like I felt like Bruce and Clark looked too similar when they were in their regular formats of things. Like, and even the boys, like, other than the change up of the hair, I was like,
like there was
could have
just
made them
one
look differently.
design for them.
Yeah, like it was just a set thing and then go with it. That was my thought on that.
Okay. Okay. How did we feel about the voice cast?
Okay, I didn't know most of these people. I went and looked just to see if I had any idea. I only knew who Bruce Wayne was, and that's only because he voiced characters on a character on the Last of Us video game, and I watched the show, so I know that he exists. But otherwise, I'm not familiar with anybody that was in it. I saw that the guy and the woman that play Lois and Clark are apparently married in real life. I was like, oh, cool. But I liked the voices for Clark. That was a good super like that Superman. That's cool. Didn't love Lex as much as some of the other Lexes I've had in this series. Um, I feel like every time I come onto these, I'm a lot more particular about my Lexes than I am about my anybody else's. And this wasn't a stellar Lex performance for me, but Lex isn't very much the center, so I don't know if I can be too critical on that. And then I thought the two boys, they were a fun time. I have no criticisms necessarily there, but I also haven't watched anything with a lot of younger kids that are actually younger kids talking
Yeah.
on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, so I am pretty picky when it comes to Batman.
Hmm.
Um, I don't love Troy Baker as Batman.
Okay.
In my opinion, he's a better Joker than he is Batman.
Mm.
He's been Batman and Joker in many things,
Hmm.
but I prefer him as Joker than as Batman. He's been Batman a few times, and sometimes a Batman just takes me some getting used to, but I've decided I'm not a
This
fan.
vibe's not there.
Yeah, like it's not for me. I didn't love this voice on Superman either.
Okay.
Now, the guy who voiced Superman, I recognized him because he's in an earlier movie, Batman Bad Blood. There's a villain named Heretic. And what's funny is in that movie, Heretic is an older clone of Damien, who we'll talk about here in a little bit.
Hmm.
But yeah, that voice didn't fit Superman to me.
Okay. I think I also I want to acknowledge the fact that I'm more familiar with a Clark vibe than I am a Superman vibe on some things. And
And
so,
what I like is when an actor can differentiate. So there are times when, like, how I know a Batman is good is if he sounds different as Bruce than as
hmm,
Batman. Same with Superman. If he sounds a little different as Clark than as Superman. Like
right,
that's how I know that's a part of the character. And that's a part of voicing them, especially because
100%.
like whenever you're voice acting, like you don't have your own face to contribute. You don't have your own actions. You are literally just a voice. And
And that's
so,
yeah, like I it's a good point to bring up because like at least with the live actions, the actors have the use of their body as well as their voice. They still need to be using their voice on that capacity as well. But no, that's a good point. I didn't even consider when I I would say that this Superman felt the same
yep,
regardless of who he was.
I think
Clark
so.
Superman versus color, like he was that guy the whole way through.
Yeah. So I I think that the boys, I have no objection. Like the boys were good, both of them. I think that they were voiced very well.
Mhm.
I think that I recognize John's voice. He was like the actor that voiced him. He was in the live action Shazam movies. I'm pretty sure
Oh,
that's
okay.
him. Freddy. I'm pretty sure it's Freddy. I can't guarantee that, but like I'm pretty sure it's Freddy. The person who voiced Damien, I don't recognize him from anything, but he did a great job in my opinion. But yeah, I can't say that I was impressed by anybody else. I mean, Starro's voice was good.
I
Um,
also think,
it was just heavy and villainous, which is all we needed.
oh yeah, and I would say, I would also say, to go to my point with the Lex one, I was like, it's a deep voice that's trying to sound like he's like an evil guy, but this doesn't sound like a Lex Luthor evil guy to me. Like I picture like Lex, you've enlightened me that Lex is a tough big guy too, can be that too, and I just know him as just necessarily a very witty like kind of man on only on that front or that part of things. This Lex just felt like a macho man sounding kind of thing, and not, which I know he was infected the entire time, and I don't know if that changes
No,
that, but okay, because I was just like, he just didn't. I
I
don't know
think
how someone can not sound witty, but you know what I mean?
if anything, I think that whenever somebody's being mind controlled, it changes their delivery, it changes their cadence,
Mm.
um, but not necessarily their voice. Because like when Lois was infected and trying to get John to come over there, you could tell something was off, but it was still her voice.
Right.
Also, I, I don't know. How do you feel about this? I am calling him John because in my head, Jonathan is the grandfather. Like Jonathan Kent is Paul to me,
Yeah,
and I can't say Jonathan Kent and think
kid.
son. Like that's not happening in my head. That's why I'm calling him John in everything, even though they call him Jonathan pretty like in the movie, most people called him Jonathan, but I can't.
I I don't disagree. I also don't also have like a big feeling towards it. I have watched Superman things in which he has children and none of them have been named after his parents, so it's not something that I have encountered having to listen to. But I'm very attached to my existence of Jonathan, and I'm like, does that affect how I like? I yeah, Jonathan's Jonathan. I
Yeah,
I agree with you bringing up that point 100%. It was weird when they would yell it out, like
yeah,
for sure, because that's not every time it would be like the kid.
yeah, exactly. And so yeah, like when I was writing the synopsis, yeah, like I was calling him John the whole time because I was like, I can't. He's not Jonathan Kent. Like Jonathan Kent is Paul Kent. That's just what it's gonna be. And yeah, two people can have the same name, but no. So,
Right.
okay. So before we start talking about the movie,
Mhm.
you just said that you have seen situations where Superman has children, but none of them are Jonathan Kent. So that leads me to believe is this your first time ever seeing or hearing about um, Jonathan Kent, Superboy in this case?
Yeah, my only Superboy situation that's been explicitly Superboy was not named Jonathan.
Usually it's Connor.
Connor. Yeah, I've dealt with Connor plenty.
Hmm.
Um, and then I've dealt with a Jason, which I think is only a film situation. And then in another situation, he has daughters. So I've not met little Jonathan.
Okay. Okay. Well, generally speaking, Jonathan Samuel Kent is the son of Superman and Lois, so, hybrid Krypton human. I think that he does end up getting all of Superman's powers, and just like anything, I think he's got like the potential to surpass. Like I think that whole thing is the
Okay.
case because that's always the case. Anytime like in Invincible, Mark is a half and ends up, eventually surpassing in Dragon Ball Z. Gohan is a half and has the potential to, yeah, it's a thing. It's just kind
Mhm.
of how it always is. So, um, but yeah, I think that for me, yeah, Superboy is Connor in like my own experience, generally speaking.
But and also though, I say that Connor's not their his kid though.
No. So
Like
in generally speaking, are you familiar with Cadmus?
Labs,
Yes.
I watched a movie where yes, the last movie you gave me, it brought it up. Yes.
Okay. So Cadmus is,
And it's brought up a little bit in Smallville because I got Connor in Smallville.
okay. So yeah, Cadmus is the lab that Lex runs, and he uses it to try to, do a bunch of experiments and stuff. And Connor is a clone of Superman that uses Superman and Lex's DNA.
Correct.
So Connor often doesn't have all of Superman's powers because he's a clone that's also half human.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I guess because A, it's comic books and comic books are going to do what they want, but because Jonathan was born, he eventually gets all the powers because he's absorbing solar radiation, yada yada yada. Um, okay. How familiar are you with this Robin?
I had no clue what was going on. I am not very familiar with Robin at all, to be so. My very limited Robin experience is literally at the end of Dark Knight Rises. And like that's
Okay.
my Robin experience. I know Robin exists. I don't know who he is further than a sidekick situation. Um, and then I know we've discussed things further where there is and I think I confused myself more when I was trying to figure things out while watching this. I know there's like a Nightwing, I believe, character, and that caused me further confusion onto who anybody is. So I'm not super familiar with Robin, and I think I've gotten less familiar as I've tried to figure out what's going on there.
Okay. So there are several Robins.
Okay.
Um, this is probably the latest Robin. So Damian Wayne is the son of Batman and Talia al Ghul. So you may have, noticed that Damian mentioned his father, Mr. Raz al Ghul.
Yes.
So, Raish is the leader of the League of Shadows or the League of Assassins, depending on, what you want to call it. And he wants Batman to succeed him as the leader of the League of Assassins. Of
Okay.
obviously Batman refuses. And so, his beautiful daughter Talia is sent to create an heir. So yeah, Talia ends up getting pregnant. Damien is born. Damien is raised in the League of Shadows, and then some stuff happens where Talia is like, "Hey, Bruce, I need you to take care of your son for a little bit." And he's like, what?" So Bruce doesn't even find out about Damien until he is a teenager, or like like almost a teenager. So
Okay.
somewhere between like 10 and 13. And so Damien comes in with a lot of skills because, again, he's been trained by the League of Shadows, but a lot of arrogance, definitely a complex, because since Raish is the leader of the League of Shadows, he has amassed a wealth that dwarfs many, because Raish, through the Lazarus Pit, has lived for hundreds of years. And so Damien has a superiority complex and like entitlement that surpasses Bruce's modest billions.
Mhm.
Like, there are a lot of times where Damien will be looking around at Bruce's shit and be like, "This is it? This all you got?" And so, yeah, like, it's the difference between like having a mansion and having a compound,
Okay, yeah.
just as an example. So, Damien, there's a lot that Bruce has to work on with Damien because
Mhm.
Damien is a killer.
Yeah.
Like, Damien's a killer. He comes from the League of Assassins, and that's what he's always known. That's what he was taught. So Batman has to work that out of Damien. He has to, like, if you watch some of the earlier movies, then you'll see him kind of working through kind of justice, not vengeance, and
Right,
you know,
right, right, right.
trying to help Damien be better. Because again, Damien comes in lethal. Like, he doesn't set it to stun. He sets it to kill every time.
I One of my first notes after he popped up was literally I said my note says, so Ray Shuggle is his grandfather. Hate that. Because I was my only
Yep.
experience is with the Dark Knight series. So like in Batman Begins and like hate that. Like all of that stuff made me so like, still as an adult when I watch it back, I was like, I like what a terrible t thing to be a part. And so when he's like, my grandfather, every time he did that, I was like, your freaking grandfather is a problem. Stop.
Yep.
Don't be like him.
Yep. That's exactly what Bruce is trying to tell him. You
Yes.
don't want to be like him.
My second note is Damien Chill.
There's a lot of that. And so Damien comes around again as a later Robin. So there are, Nightwing was the first Robin, who's Dick Grayson. So um that Robin, good and grown, doing his own thing in Bloodhaven. And so that's why he may come up. But yeah, he was the first Robin, and he and
So Robin's
Damien,
multiple entities.
yeah, Robin is a mantle that
Okay.
more
Kind
than
of
one
like
person
it
has
like
held. Yes.
like an impulse flash situation? Or is that
Yeah.
different? I know I don't fully understand that as well. Sorry, listeners. I'm learning.
So I'd say Impulse Flash is kind of more of a Batman Robin situation, like
Oh,
with
okay.
Flash being the Batman and Impulse being the Robin. Kinda.
Okay.
It's eh, not quite, but that essentially.
Okay.
Because Impulse is kind of viewed as a sidekick. Um, and
Okay.
it gets complicated when it with Flash because like there's Barry Allen and there's Wally West, and it depends on who you know as who,
Yeah.
because sometimes Wally West is Flash, other times Wally West is Kid Flash, and Barry Allen is. So yeah, um, there's too much.
Okay.
It's comic books.
Okay. But Robin itself is its own situation that can be a refillable position.
That is correct.
Okay.
How there's more than one Green Lantern.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, like Green Lantern is a mantle that different people have held.
Okay.
And
Got it.
so Robin is similar. So the first Robin was Dick Grayson, and then he kind of aged out, and then he had Jason Todd, he had Tim Drake, he had a female Robin whose name escapes me right now. Uh, Batgirl was never Robin, she was Batgirl. And then there was Batwoman. There's a whole Bat family, a Batman Inc. But yeah, so Damian is the, I guess, newest Robin.
Okay.
And again, like there are challenges that he brings that uh Bruce hasn't had to deal with, because with Jason there were some challenges that he had to deal with Jason. And because Dick was a situation where he was an acrobat with the Flying Graysons. He lost his family, and so Bruce took him in. Um, but when he found Jason, Jason was like lifting the tires off the Batmobile.
Oh.
And he was like, let's put those skills to use. But he had to have similar conversations with Jason of like, hey, you're a little too violent.
Hmm.
You need to bring it back a little bit.
Hmm.
And then the Joker ends up catching Jason, kills him, and then Raish, I don't know if the stories change, but there's a movie called Under the Red Hood, and in that movie, Raish is the one who hired the Joker, didn't realize how crazy he was, and so he felt bad that Jason died, and so he used the Lazarus Pit to revive him, and he comes back as the Red Hood. And he's now using all of his skills that he's acquired over the years, but he's a killer. And so,
Okay.
yeah, another great
Ray should
movie.
stop getting involved.
Yeah, yeah. Uh,
Pretty
but
good.
anyway, um, I said all of that to say, Damian
Is
is
currently Robin.
is currently Robin. And it's funny because he has this like weird war with Dick of like I'm the actual son
Oh,
because yeah, like it's again that entitlement is
yeah.
crazy because there are a lot of times where I mean like you saw in the movie, he was like, "Hey, y'all need me on the Teen Titans, but I don't need to be on your little team." And
Hmm.
then they were like, "Well, we voted not to
You're
have
not
you."
going to
And
be
then
on.
he was like, "Well, that's bullshit. I'm better than like." So yeah, like that is his personality.
Okay. Oh, I definitely, I know he was in the Robin fit, but it's just they kept referring to him as Damien, so I was like, okay. And then like I feel like there's only one mention of like Batman and Robin, da da da, and so I was like, are you referring to yourself? Like who? Like so I was just a bit confused on how that got there, which I understand this is a whole bigger universe of films, but one of I get a little
Actually, it's not.
frustrated. Huh?
So this film actually stands alone. This is not a part of a
Well,
continued
then
universe.
my next point is I can't stand when a film in a universe can't stand alone. I appreciate when there's Easter eggs, but like I think it's important that things stand alone as well. So now I'm a little irritated that I didn't have that knowledge base. Well,
And
we
that
have this whole like comic book thing of like here's Clark now, and then okay, well here's Damien.
yeah. And that's the thing. There are a lot of movies like because the last movie that you were on was Superman Man of Tomorrow, and that movie is at the beginning of a new continued universe.
Mhm.
And this movie being after that, you were probably like, "Oh, this is in that same." No, it is not. This is a standalone movie, and that is again one thing I love that DC is able to do is
Yes.
have some standalone items that are not connected to a larger universe.
I do appreciate that. I just didn't appreciate I had no clue where Damien came in from.
Yeah. And so, yeah, if this was your first time seeing Damien, you're like, what's happening? I'm confused.
Yeah.
But I think this movie assumes that you already know who Damien is because Damien has been in earlier films, but this
I
Jonathan Kent hasn't really.
think it's just a little, I don't know. From again, I'm looking at it just from my point of view, and that's not a good point of view to go at it from because I'm also looking at it as someone that very familiar with multiple Superman origin stuff that I was like, okay, well, you showed me the blowing up of Krypton for the billionth time. I don't need that story again. I know it blows up, which I know it was the whole point of like Starro's coming with,
Yep.
which ironically enough, right when Starro popped up on that first bit, I was like, oh no, aliens, as if Clark's not an alien also. God,
Yeah.
I was like,
Oh,
no.
yeah.
But the fact that they went through the effort of showing another Superman origin story, and then I was like, but who's this kid?
Well, and
But
it's
I'm
so
biased on that, obviously, of knowledge, I guess.
it's funny that you mention like aliens, but Superman, but because as you remember, in the last movie you were in, we discussed the fact that Superman is an alien but passes, and
Yeah.
Martian Manhunter is an alien who doesn't.
Yes.
And so, yeah, the fact that you were like, "Oh no, an alien."
That was my immediate thought, right? When it like I was like, as if it's not on a spaceship of another alien
Yeah,
coming. And I had to clock myself real quick. I was like, I do have that because yeah, Clark is human passing, so it's
yeah, it was really funny.
I did it
So,
again.
what I will say, I think at this point, at least in animated movies, we only actually see the destruction of Krypton whenever it's a proper origin story or there is something different about it. So, for example, in an earlier film, matter of fact, I think it may have been the last episode of Dragon Ball Z, but in Super Pets, which was the last episode. Um, they show the destruction of Krypton, but the reason they show the destruction of Krypton is because that movie is about Crypto, the dog. So we have to watch Crypto get into the pod with Superman and also make it here with Superman. And then we just skip to them being adults.
Okay.
There's another earlier movie, Gods and Monsters, which is a very alternate universe situation. And in that movie, I guess children are not created naturally through, a horizontal uh
As we so know, procreation occurs.
I think yeah, they just kind of stick their finger in a thing and they like mix his DNA. In that movie, it was not Jor-El's DNA, it was Zod's DNA
Okay.
because in that universe, Zod decides if anyone's seed is going to exist in the universe, it will be mine.
On brand.
Yeah, exactly. And so I feel like at this point, whenever they show Krypton being destroyed, it is because something else is happening too.
Which makes sense. And it clicked with me after I freaked out about an alien coming down.
Yep.
I was like, okay, that's why they're showing this is because an alien attached to this thing. But it was just funny because I obviously consume more Superman stuff, so I was like, oh, another one of these, but I don't consume enough to know when it's not happening too, I would assume. So that's a good point to bring to my light.
Okay. So that brings us to Starro. Are you familiar with Starro at all?
I am not familiar with Starro, and I even went back to check to make sure it wasn't just like a one-off episode because Smallville liked to make things smaller than what they were to fit it into the Smallville small situation of things. And the only time Starro even popped up in the world of Smallville is in season 11, which is just a digital comic book extension of the show, and that's not something I had taken part in reading. So this was a brand new character situation for me. So I had not encountered this villain before.
Okay. So Starro is the like big bad that actually brings the Justice League together originally. So
Okay.
Starro is the first like large scale villain that facilitates the combining of superheroes to make a team
Okay.
in DC. So I forget the name of the issue. I think it's Brave and the Bold something. But yeah, Starro's the first like big villain. And Starro, it's pretty much what we see. Like it's a giant starfish that lets off probes that face suck to people and create a
Hated
hive
it.
mind to siphon resources.
I hated it a lot.
Yes. And Starro has appeared in many things over the years. I think that for a lot of people, their first time seeing Starro, if they aren't fans of DC, was in the Suicide Squad movie. So the second one,
Right.
because Starro is the big villain in that movie. Now, I thought I like Starro as a villain because Starro is definitely a problem. And Starro is off like so again, Starro is the first Justice League villain. I thought it was interesting that Starro was the first villain that James Gunn used for his, introduction to DC movies.
Hmm.
I thought it was interesting that Starro is the first villain that John comes up against. Um, but yeah, Starro has appeared in a bunch of stuff. And again, the origin is pretty consistent. Like, it's a giant star-shaped alien that is a conqueror. Like, Starro the Conqueror is how he was known for a long time.
Okay.
So, um, yeah, and then, yeah, like sometimes he'll just kind of show up in the background of stuff. And if you know it's Starro, then you know it's Starro. But yeah, this is generally speaking how Starro appears. So, yeah. Um, let's talk through the movie at this point. So
Okay.
we see Krypton being destroyed. Now, you said that you've seen this a million times. One of the things that I thought was interesting about this Krypton being destroyed is it was very green.
Hmm.
And that's something that I don't think I've seen before. Like, whenever Krypton is being destroyed, it's never been this green.
Very cold and icy look. It's very Fortress of Solitude across or across the things I've watched. It's very much. It looks exactly like the Fortress of Solitude looks.
Yeah, like it's usually like a very futuristic looking
Yeah.
society. Um, but I'm wondering if they made it green because, kryptonite,
Right.
but that doesn't make sense to me because kryptonite isn't the reason Kryptonians don't have power on Krypton. The reason they don't have power on Krypton is because Krypton is under a red sun.
I didn't see it as it not being why they don't have powers on Krypton. I saw it as more of like maybe an emphasis of Krypton's made of kryptonite. Like it wasn't something that he's supposed to be allergic to, you know?
Okay.
Like I think it was just a creative decision on that front of just like, hey, this is where it came from and it's bad because of where do you,
Okay. Yeah, just
that's a viewpoint I saw of it. I'm not like dedicated to that thought process, but I was just like, oh wow, they're really showing the kryptonite here is what I was
yeah.
they're
And
really leaning into that.
I guess that felt weird just because that's never happened. Like every time we've seen Krypton being destroyed, it is not green ever.
White and silver and of the future, as you say. Like it's
Yeah,
so
it's very
vibrant.
futuristic, but like even when it's like being destroyed, it's
Yeah.
proper colored lava
Yeah.
that's like, spewing out of everything.
Right.
Or it's just kind of the earth, or it's just kind of in a giant earthquake.
Right.
But yeah, so we see that Starro is basically in an aquarium, and then, the aquarium busts open, and Starro ends up hitching a ride with Superman. And we then just kind of see like comic book flashes of Superman's life.
I made a note during those flashes, and it was literally just, why did we kill Martha? I was just upset about Martha.
I assume that it had a lot to do with the fact that the whole point of this was an older Superman, because we know that with Damian, again, Batman had Nightwing for a long time, and then Batman has been through several Robins before he gets to Damian.
Right.
And also, Damian has to be born and grow up to be a teenager. So I think that because they wanted to imply that a lot of time had passed is why Martha was dead, because they were old when they got him in this.
I know, and I again, this is my bias of what I've watched, and you have had to remind me that Jonathan doesn't always die too. Like that was you that I was because everything you watch the Christopher Reeve films, you watch Smallville, like Jonathan dies. That's what Jonathan does.
Yeah.
He's gone. So but in my same viewpoint, Martha's always around. Also, Smallville gave me a younger Martha and Jonathan Kent. And
And
so,
that's because in Smallville, he's not Superman yet. Like
but
he's
even,
a teen.
yeah, like they were regular aged parents and not the older version that is in a lot of them. Like he does have older parents and some, but this is the first time that they were
Like
just like, Martha's gone. And I was like, no.
like old enough to be called Ma and Pa.
Yeah.
But yeah, like because I noticed like a lot of times whenever they get him when he's a baby, they are younger.
Mm,
And then like they get older, but like in this, they were old when he was a baby.
yeah.
And so they're good and dead by the time he's
I was still
grown.
upset though. I was just like,
I
not Martha
understand.
too.
I get that.
Yeah.
So, John is, doing homework and basically like, why are y'all reporters? That's terrible. Like, why couldn't I
Y'all are
have,
so boring.
yeah, why couldn't I have less boring parents?
She's like, you nerds.
Yeah. And Lois is basically like, reporting is really important. Here's why. And then she uses
Mm,
video games to like, get him there. And,
right.
I guess he gets there eventually. But it does show that even though he thinks they're boring and terrible, he is listening to what they're saying to him and
He's
he is taking
very
it in.
into his parents. Like he like is he's not he's typical teen in the oh my gosh guys like be cooler, but he's very present with them and not ignoring them. And it was nice to see.
I agree. Like it was nice to see that like he was because we love a callback in a movie, but as a teenager he was actually listening to his parents, even though he
Right.
had zero interest in what they were talking about.
Right.
So, we see Clark come home, and then they get to doing work on the farm and having fun doing it.
I want to make a note before that when John's trying to find his gifts and he opens the Superman suit and he just goes, ew, cosplay.
Ew, yeah, that was funny. I agree.
Like I'm sure he's never seen his father dressed up at all, and still he goes cosplay.
Ew,
It made me
that
laugh.
that was funny. No, I agree. Um, so yeah, they start choring and they're having fun, and he obviously has no idea that his dad is Superman.
Mm.
And the night comes and he's kind of like, I really just miss having you around. Like, I know that your job is important, but like, you're just a reporter.
Right.
And he's like, well, I mean, my job's pretty important. Like, I mean, I do important work. And he's like, yeah, but you should be at the house here with me. I don't like when you're not here. And then they see something falling out of the sky, and Superman is like, hey, look over there. And then, he goes to handle it.
That's another moment that made me laugh because he does that and goes to handle it, but you can tell he's flying from the other way to go handle it. And I'm like, that man ran to the other side of town so he could fly from the other side of town so his son doesn't see him lifting off from
Yep.
the farm.
But he did it real quick.
Well, yeah, but it made me laugh. I was like, oh my gosh, that's
No,
some
I
talent.
agree. Like I did think I was like, why are you coming from that side? Like you could have
What?
just
Yeah,
gone
like
straight up from
yeah, I was like, you went out of your way.
but okay.
Wasting milliseconds, Clark.
Yeah. But he goes up there and he takes care of it pretty easily and he's like, "Oh, there's a tsunami in Japan right now. Uh Green Arrow, tell Batman he loves this kind of stuff." And then we see that whatever's in there got
Oh,
him.
yeah.
So, um the next day we have a baseball game. It's John's birthday and, his dad says he's going to be there. Dad's not there. He ends up striking out.
Jonathan can't.
Jonathan can't. I
It's
thought that was funny.
so funny.
That was really
Oh,
funny. I was like, "Oh, but that's good.
it's so
That's a
good.
good that's a good one."
Oh, it was good.
Oh, yeah, I was like, obviously Melvin's not very smart, but that again,
I liked it though.
I that was good.
Yep.
That was really good. Jonathan can't. And maybe that I don't think I'm a bully, but like that's funny.
It's good writing. That's all I told myself. I was like, yep, that was made to make me laugh, so it's fine.
Yep. Yep. So, uh Clark comes back home and Lois is like, "Yeah, he's super disappointed that you weren't there." And so he tries to talk to him and he just runs away. And because he's super stressed out, heat vision, explosion, oh shit. And then he, is like, "I am a freak."
Mhm,
And Superman's like, "I mean, not really.
mhm.
I just need you to look at me for just a second." He looks at him and he's like, "Oh my God, my dad is Superman."
Yeah.
And so, pretty standard excitement. I was like, yeah, you should be excited. And
I, if I may, I made a note of the heat vision. So one of my favorite things with Smallville early seasons is every time we got to see Clark recognize a new power. Because at first it was just Clark was super strong. Like that's all that they knew about him. And then one of the first things that he figures out he can also do is heat vision. And I liked it because it felt similar in this, not for the same reasons, but it was a very much a emotion time and then just like figures and it's like, oh no, what am I doing? And
and
it
that's the
leads into Lois panicking about X-ray vision too, because like the X-ray um part two is also happening with that whole thing, and it was just like we can't let him go to school like this.
yes. I think, yeah, like heat vision being brought on by stress makes perfect sense to me. So, uh, yeah, I guess that's the first power he gets because it's a very clear, obvious Superman-like power.
Mhm.
Um, so they go out flying and, they're just kind of talking about stuff. And they make their way to Gotham City because he mentions like I love Batman. Batman is my favorite.
You're like the coolest superhero ever, Dad, after Batman.
Yep,
I was like, oh my gosh.
but that's often how it is.
Yeah.
And so Batman is dealing with Penguin and some of his goons, and it's funny because he's like, Batman won't do it. He's like, yeah, he will.
Batman
Pushes him off the
will
building.
do it.
He will.
Batman's gonna.
He pushes him off the building, and John is like, oh shit. And he's like, wait for it. And I thought it was hilarious that John was like, Dad, shouldn't we go help? And Superman was like, nah, that's a bad idea. I don't think we need to do that. He doesn't like it very much when we do that.
Mm-mm.
Now, if he was going against Bane, yeah, I'm gonna need the help. But yeah, Penguin, nah, I got it.
Mhm.
So, they meet and then they go to the Batcave because um Superman is like, well, now that you're starting to manifest some powers, we gotta go get you looked at. And who better than my dear friend Batman? So, he meets Robin, and Robin is just, you know, really kind of a dick. And again, that's his character. Like
Right.
that is very Damien. And
Could be.
so, that's when uh we find out that Damien is like, "Oh, high stress? Huh, okay." And then yeah, almost kills him. And Batman is kind of like, "Why would you do that?" And Damien's like, "Well, you said high stress.
Right.
So, I tried to put it to the test.
Right.
Just that's what we do here, right?"
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So Batman mentions that he has not had any communication with the Watchtower, which confuses Superman because Superman was like, "I told Green Arrow to contact you." Like that he had one job. So the fact that he hasn't, that's weird.
Is Watchtower canonically a satellite?
Yes. Like in most cases, the Watchtower is orbiting the Earth as like a giant space station.
Okay.
Like that is very normal. How do you know the Watchtower?
Watchtower is call sign for a character that can control satellites everywhere. There's Chloe, that character. She is Watchtower. She helps organize things for the Justice League. She is also in Smallville World. She's the Green Arrow's girlfriend, so she has all access to all of Queen Industries stuff up there. So she uses all of Queen Industries things and stuff like that. But it's like it's literally ran out of like Oliver Queenville department.
So, I think that is the standard trope of, I mean, the trope is called the man in the chair, but like the person in the chair.
Yeah,
Um, and yeah, the fact that they use Queen Industries was a licensing issue because, everything wasn't consolidated and they weren't allowed to use Batman at all.
they were not allowed to use it at all.
Yeah,
We leaned Smallville leaned really hard into Oliver Queen
that's how it had to be.
as the rich man.
That's what we got to, that's what we got to do. That's
It gave me Green Arrow. I don't know if I would have gotten until Arrowverse situation, but I learned about Green Arrow way earlier than I think a lot of people did because of that.
yeah, that's usually the case.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that live action DC stuff, they like person in the chair is a part of the formula.
Okay, because I one of my notes with the satellite, I was like, oh my gosh, I love Watchtower, and then I was like, it's just the satellite thing. It's not like not like it just that's how I knew it was like they all were in contact with Watchtower, but yeah, it was a very like Chloe was the one that was Watchtower. She was the entity of Watchtower, and she just controlled the computers and organized it for people.
Yes. And I think that it works really well for media to like have a person dedicated to being the one in the chair,
Mhm.
um, as like a communication point of contact for everybody and to handle everything. If you have questions, if you need like GPS coordinates or like anything you
Right.
need, they can just handle because that's their job. So in the Arrow verse, like Felicity was the one in the chair. Um, in the Arrowverse, Flash had somebody in the chair. Um, for Batman, sometimes Alfred's in the chair, but later Oracle is the one in the chair. Even Kim Possible, Wade is in the chair. So like person like that's a trope
Bro,
that
that's
is
heavy there.
yeah.
I never, it's because, well, and Chloe didn't start off that way. So I think that's why I never connected as a person in the chair situation. Cause like she was her own thing for a while before Watchtower was a thing, but that also is coming together. But that's how Watchtower was introduced to me. It was like Chloe was like, I've got an idea. I'm going to use Oliver's stuff and we're going to go with this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, the Watchtower, depending on where the Justice League is in their formation, like the Watchtower will either already exist or you'll watch it become a thing.
Mhm.
There's also the Hall of Justice, which is kind of like a Justice League museum.
I've seen the Hall of Justice.
And I think the Hall of Justice, as far as the world is concerned, the Hall of Justice is HQ. But in real life, it's the Watchtower.
Yeah,
So, I mean, that's why it's called the Watchtower.
right.
So, but yes, to answer your question, the Watchtower refers to the satellite
Okay.
that all of them are like somebody's usually on the Watchtower at all times. Um, and so in this case, it was Green Arrow, but you saw that there were a bunch of people on the Watchtower when they got there later.
Right. I did.
S- So, Robin gets a call from Wonder Girl who basically says, "Yeah, we voted, and you're you're far too selfish to be on the Teen Titans. Like, we're not gonna be able to do that. So sorry." And he's like, "I don't want to be on your dumb team anyway.
Hmm.
I'm better than you." We also see that he has a pet cow who that was random, first of all. I've never seen a bat cow. Like,
Okay, I was gonna ask about that because the way they brought it was so nonchalant and him being like, "Who doesn't have a cow?" And I was like, "Okay,
yeah,
maybe I'm this far removed," which I wasn't gonna doubt. I was like, "Okay, I just don't know about this cow."
the only animal that we ever usually see Batman have is a dog named Ace,
Okay,
who's the Bat Hound.
the
But
cow just
no,
was
this is the first time I have seen the Bat Cow, and I thought it was hilarious that it had a spot on its face that was a bat mask.
yeah.
I was like, is this because Jonathan is from Smallville and we just had to, like, what are we doing?
Right.
But whatever, because I think it was an opportunity for him to be like, I know things. You have to milk this cow.
Mhm.
So yeah, I don't know what we were doing with that. That was probably the point where I was like, okay, this is for babies. Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's what this is gonna be.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, whatever. It was fine. So, Batman and Superman get a hold of Green Arrow, and he basically says, "Hey, everything's fine. We're good." And they're like, "Nah, that was weird. That wasn't Oliver. Something's off." And Batman deducing that, that Batman can see everything. But Superman being like, "No, that was weird. No, that was weird." So they both immediately are like, no, something's not right. And again, whenever it comes to mind control, that's usually what's going to be the difference is the way that people talk,
Mhm.
or the words that people use. Um, I guess personality quirks that are different
Right.
because usually Starro is an example of like mind control where you can kind of tell a difference, but usually what I will say, typically, because I this is what got me. Typically, if somebody has been Starroed, there's a Starro on their face, period. Like, whenever Starro was like coming out of people's mouths and doing that, I was like, oh, that's new.
I did not like that.
Good. It was uncomfortable.
I did not like that at all.
Not one bit.
No.
But
I
yes,
said this alien stuff is capital gross.
yes. But yeah, I've never seen Starro not be controlling somebody without a star on their face already.
Okay.
So this is at least my first time seeing Starro be able to trick people with mind control.
Hmm.
Just because usually if somebody's already under Starro's control, you can see it.
It's physically manifested onto
Yeah,
them.
like
Yeah.
it's literally on their face.
Right.
Like in the movie Alien, like that's how you know somebody's gonna alien burst out of their chest is because they have a face hugger
Oh, I didn't
on their
like it.
face.
Ugh.
And so, um, this is the first time I had seen a situation where Starro was able to control people without it physically being on them,
Mhm.
um, but still on them, which I thought was, on one hand, I was like, that's a nice twist because it, adds some mystery to the movie. But the problem is, why then would I ever like be on somebody's face?
Yeah, if you know that you can just be inside their throat, I guess, like just why would you outwardly manifest yourself
Like,
where
why
people
would you ever
better
show
call it?
yourself?
Yeah.
And it also made me wonder, like, are the Starro spores, parasites, whatever you want to call them, are they being produced, or does everybody have one on them at all times?
I
Or
didn't understand how that was happening either.
yeah,
Yeah.
I had a couple questions,
Yeah.
but I think we had a tight 75 minutes, and that tends to be the case with some of these movies.
Mhm.
And so we didn't have the time to talk about that.
Yeah.
I do think it added something interesting to the movie. But um they go up to the watchtower and I'm guessing Superman does like an X-ray sweep and he's like, "Oh shit, we have to leave."
Hmm.
Because he probably saw something. And then yeah, Martian Manhunter sneaks up on him.
I we know after these I really enjoy the character of Martian Manhunter and I love when he pops up. I did not need to see any of his part of this entire thing. His freaked me out, which I know his was like one of the first ones to really show, but I was like, "Oh, oh, oh, I don't
Yep.
want to watch that."
Yep.
I was like, I love seeing Martian Manhunter, but I was like, "You're not him. Go away."
And what I would like to point out is, of course, we know we're dealing with mind control,
Right.
but I think that I don't know if this is why they used Martian Manhunter, but the way I saw it, the fact that Martian Manhunter got speaks to how total Starro and how powerful Starro's mind control is.
I agree on that take. Because like any version I've seen of Martian Manhunter, he's always fully in control of whatever situation he's got going on. And
Yes.
so that made it extra jarring in that moment of like, oh, if he's got, we're doomed.
Yeah. Because again, a part of Martian Manhunter's package is, telepathy and a very strong mental ability. Like
Mhm.
he can, create telepathic links. He has the full telepathy package. And
Right.
so if he was able to get got, I mean, everybody can get got.
We're all going down.
Because there are a lot of times where certain people have some resistance to mind control at some level, but again, this demonstrated that Starro's level of mind control is up high,
Hmm.
at least compared to other people. Like Grodd, his level of mind control is nothing compared to Starro's, for example.
Hmm.
So, um, the next day, we see that John is at school, and now he got some powers on him.
Load it up.
And he's being bullied. And now that he has powers, he's talking that shit. He's talking it back because
Hmm.
he's like, yeah, I'm a little smaller than you, but try me if you want to,
Yeah.
because I can defend myself now. And basically, it was very like old school in that the bully was basically like being smart is dumb.
Yep.
Like that was the bully's
That
like,
was his whole shtick.
yeah, it's like, why would I get good grades? I'm not a nerd.
Hmm.
It's like, okay.
Green.
Yeah, very, very classic bully.
Right.
So, while that's happening, Starro Batman tries to sneak up on Robin, and Robin is like, not me. Yeah, you got to be better than that because Batman is like stealth is one of his superpowers. Like sneaking up on people is one of the things he's best at. And so Damien was pretty much like, yeah, nah, you're not gonna get me. And why he had a sharp, like, he was about to cut Batman's hand off. But whatever, that's fine. So he's confused. But yeah, like, I think that whenever he, yeah, cut that piece of the Starro was, that offended him. And Starro was like, oh no,
Not doing that.
no.
Right,
Like, you just gonna have to die.
right.
So yeah, he just tries to kill him because it's still Batman.
Hmm.
Like, and Batman beat his ass. I
Hmm.
thought it was funny whenever Damien said, "Don't make me kill you." I was like, I laughed out loud. I was, ah,
But yeah, you're trained, my guy. But you know who also trained this guy? Like, chill.
yeah, like, how dare you think
Yeah,
that?
bold,
Yeah, you got me
bold.
confused with somebody.
Hmm.
So Starro decides, yeah, we just gotta get rid of you. So he tries to kill him. Of course, he survives, and then Robin looks on the computer, or he hears the conversation of like, threat neutralized. We've almost taken over everybody that we need. You know, we're good to start, moving. And so he pulls up the computer and he's like, oh shit, they've got everybody. And it looks like John is next. So he gets in the plane and moves to Smallville. John is being reprimanded by the principal, who the principal I'm pretty sure was also, I know for a fact that Penguin was voiced by SpongeBob. I think the principal was too.
Okay.
But yeah, I know
I saw
Penguin was
that he was one of the cast. I just didn't look deep into who he was doing.
like when because I try not to look at the cast and then I'll see it like after, but
Right.
I try to see who I can recognize.
Mhm.
And when the Penguin was talking, I was like, that's SpongeBob. Because he's used that same voice as different villains in DC before.
Okay.
So that's how I immediately was like, oh yeah, that's SpongeBob. But I want to say also he was the principal because he also sounded like Tom Kenny. But yeah, the principal is basically saying like he's a troubled like I expect better from you. You know better. And then he sees Damien pop up and he's like, "Yep, got it. I will be better." He's like, "Your mother's on her way right now." Okay, that's fine. So Robin shows up, and of course he's making fun of John because that's what we're gonna do. That's always gonna be the case.
I'll
Eh,
save you, but
yeah, but I'm gonna talk that shit.
the whole time. Yeah.
And so Lois is walking down the hallway, and he's like, "Oh shit, mom's here," and Damien's like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa!
Is it, mom?
She's compromised. I need you to ask her a question that only like you need to ask her a question to prove she's her." And he was basically like, "Can I eat snacks and watch video games?" She was like, "Of course, dear." And like, "Yep, she's infected."
Yeah.
Like, it knew immediately, like, "Yep, that's not her." So yeah, she starts, chasing him, but Lois doesn't really have any powers, so that works out. And he lasers the thing, but he doesn't know that that worked.
Can I just say though, Damien just yelling out, kill her. And he's like, that's my mom. And that's what I did too. I was like, that's his mom. Like he's so casual about these threats that he makes, and he's being genuine, which kills me more.
That is Damien. Because
Seriously,
yeah,
kill
Damien was
it.
like, kill her. Like she's infected.
Yep.
Because whenever Damien said to his father, "Don't make me kill you, father." So
Hmm.
yeah, Lois, she got to go.
Whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, she got to go.
Yeah.
That's not Lois anymore. So yeah, just how about you go ahead, put her down, and that's because that's what we got to do. That's how it is.
That made me do a little like, oh, when I was watching, I was like, this kid.
And again, it just speaks to Damien, and it's an early Damien because I'm sure Batman says to Superman like we're working on him.
Right.
We're
Yep.
still
Yep.
we're
We'll get that
getting
out of him.
yeah, like we're
We'll
still
get it.
Still growing, but you know, it's a steep incline
Hmm.
because he spent literally his entire life with the League of Shadows.
Great.
So, they make their way to the Fortress of Solitude, and you see that it's just a giant key.
That, yep.
So normally, well, I won't say normally. A lot of times it's a regular sized key, but it's just super heavy. Like,
Hmm.
so only Superman can lift it. But yeah, in this case, they made it a physically giant key.
I have not seen it so comically presented, which I think that's a theme of a lot of stuff that I saw in this movie. Like I've not seen a key necessarily. I've seen use of like there's like a special crystal that is the crystal. Like you can get into it, but nothing's happening unless you place a crystal in a certain spot.
Yeah, a lot of crystal stuff.
A lot of crystal stuff. But this key popping, I was like, you have got to be kidding me. And like just how comically large it was, I was like,
And
okay.
I and I think it's one of those things of like the we're in the middle of I like it's the Fortress of Solitude because nobody comes here.
Yeah.
Like nobody can get here, so it's fine. I can have a big ass key because even
Yeah,
if somebody does find it, they're gonna have to have Superman strength to open the door.
right.
But yes, comically large is correct. But yeah, like I have seen it as a regular size key, but it is that heavy.
Yeah.
And so, because I remember, I don't remember which movie it was in, but somebody was like, "Oh, he just leaves the key out." And it was like, "Try to pick it up."
Yeah, it's one of those like mystical.
So, he's able to use the absurdly large key to get into the Fortress of Solitude. And upon arriving, they run into Crypto, and Crypto doesn't know who they are. So, not happy to see them.
I was I am excited when I see crypto. Um and I was really worried for a second. I didn't recognize the fact that it's like, oh, maybe he doesn't recognize them. I was more just like, don't give me an evil crypto, please. I don't want to deal with that. So I was glad that it was just oh, I don't know who this is.
Yeah, because I was gonna say if Crypto had been Starro, I'd be like, "How?"
Well, that's a question I had for a lot of things, so I would have also been, yeah.
Because well, I guess maybe it's like once Starro takes over your mind, he knows what you know, but also it doesn't seem like that is
I
the
know,
case.
I was just stressed. I was like, don't make the dog bad.
Yeah, but yeah, I figured, oh, he doesn't know who they are, but I was thinking, oh, Crypto's gonna recognize him or smell him or
That was my next thought when the Jor-El thing came to things and he was just like, "Oh, Crypto, don't you know who this is?" I was like, "Crypto, yeah, why don't you know who that is? Like, you are an
yeah,
alien dog. This is half the DNA of the man you rode down here with. Like,
yeah. And
how don't you
Superman,
know who this is?"
and if Jor-El knows, that means Superman has been here to update
Yeah,
things. So you should know, like, you should have like an updated school photo of him or something.
right, I know. So that was a little bit of a disconnect for me.
Yeah, like Damien, yeah, you should
Yeah.
probably, he's a threat
Yeah.
that we should do something about. But yeah, anyway, um, the Jor-El AI is like, hey, don't you know who this is? And then yeah, Crypto's immediately like, oh yeah,
Oh, my guy.
yeah, I know exactly who this is. It's my brother.
Great.
So, Crypto chills out, and Jor-El is like, this is what Starro is. And John is able to, piece together the information that he has received from earlier in the movie to say, oh, if it's a hive mind situation, then we need to destroy the queen in order to destroy the hive mind. Okay, cool, excellent. We have a plan. So, uh, Lois, now free, goes to Jimmy and immediately assumes that Jimmy has been taken over, which is the right thing to do.
Totally the right thing to do. But
Lois Lois just hemmed him up, said, "Open your mouth."
but on that same note, I wrote down Jimmy is too trusting for real. Because I was like, this woman's about to just you.
Yeah, that's correct.
Uh,
But I guess for like that's the relationship she and Jimmy have.
right. I will say I liked this Jimmy a lot though.
I do too.
I had fun with this Jimmy. He was brief, but a good time.
Yes, I agree. So yeah, she goes to see Jimmy, and she's kind of like, "This is what's going on. I'm not sure what we should do." And he's like, "You could, you know, the president can get a
Oh,
broadcast out to the entire world." He's like,
yep.
"Oh, Jimmy, thank you. That's a great idea."
Hmm.
And I wondered if Lex was going to be the president when they mentioned the president.
Yeah.
So,
I I made my note just says, ha ha ha, I love President Lex.
yeah,
It's a trope that I eat up. I enjoy a President Lex.
I think I do too. Because honestly, a lot of times President Lex has us in a good situation.
No, he
Like
does.
usually things are good under a President Lex.
Mm,
Which is a part of the problem. But yeah, like Lex, he cleans some shit up and things good. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
So, Robin and John, they get into Superman's baby ship, which is not roomy, and they make their way to the Watchtower. And upon leaving, Jor-El is like, they're not gonna survive,
No.
but they still got to do it.
What other hope is there at this point?
Yeah, like it's still gonna happen, but like their odds of success are very low.
Right.
Because I'm thinking, I'm Crypto, you coming with me?
Oh yeah.
Because
Take a shot.
yeah, we got shit to do, and you have powers, and you can understand us. You know what's happening. Crypto, come on.
Mm-hmm.
This ship is small, but we gonna all make
We'll
this
make
trip.
it. We'll make
Yep.
it.
So they arrive and they see several. It's basically Martian Manhunter, Green Arrow, and the Teen Titans
Right.
that have been Star Road, and we got to fight.
I made a note right from the start because Damien makes a comment at Green Arrow, who I'm assuming is Oliver Queen, right? Like that's
Yes.
okay. Because as we discussed just a bit ago with Smallville's rights of things, like they really leaned into Oliver Queen since they couldn't get Bruce Wayne. So I just made a joke about, or I made a note joking of like, it's funny to me that Damien was hating on Oliver Queen. I was like, he's just a silly version of your dad.
Which I also thought was funny because, like, that's one of the because of course I didn't watch Smallville,
Hmm.
but watching Arrow, I
Mhm.
was like, the only reason the show exists is because they didn't have the license for
They can't
Batman.
make a Batman. No.
But that's what this is.
So, but that's why when he made that comment, I was like, "It's they're the same. They're both these billionaires whose parents died that are
Yeah,
superheroes in the night." So I was like, he's the same as your dad. Chill out.
yeah. And
But I
that's
made
why
that
no, that's
comment.
why that was funny. Like that's exactly why it was funny, is because
Okay.
like you're just a discount Batman. And it's like, well, because yeah, Damien is pretty much like you stole my dad's whole shit. Like you stole his whole swag. So yeah. And I was like, that's funny. Because also in the Arrowverse, whenever Batman does eventually show up, because Batwoman becomes a part of it, Arrow's whole thing is like Batman doesn't exist. He's not real. Like the fact that Arrow's the one, it's so funny.
Okay, that is funny.
Like they were aware of what that was, and I'm glad.
That's okay. That's funny. Like that one of the unfortunately because of how things worked with Smallville is like Batman just does not it. There's
Yeah.
mentions of like there's airs of it.
Like
He's in the air.
do they even talk about Gotham City?
I want to tell you that I think they mentioned Gotham once in the entirety of the show. And it wasn't even like it was indirect enough,
It was passing.
but I couldn't tell you like, and I think it was just, I'm trying to remember if it was a direct, like they said the word Gotham, or it was just really obvious that they were talking about Gotham or like a billionaire and another thing. But Oliver was already introduced, so you knew they weren't talking about Oliver. But that's like, again, that's the weird thing with growing up too, of things of like Batman was a big thing, but I never associated Batman and Superman together because of Batman did not exist in the world of Smallville.
That I had that same problem with X-Men and the rest of Marvel. Like
It's a
I did,
whole separate entity of things
yeah, like I didn't realize
that
that
lives
they
on its
were
own.
together
Yeah.
for a long time. Um, and so yeah, and that was a licensing issue. Like
Hmm.
they weren't allowed to exist together on screen.
Hmm.
Now, there were some people who, because there were shows where, like, there were cartoons where they were together, and that's how I knew about DC stuff was because I saw Justice League and just like so I
Right.
knew all of them knew each other. But yeah, like for a long time, I thought that X-Men was like I guess I knew it was Marvel, kinda, but
But
like
it's still that just funny, that disconnect of a little bit, because like
yeah,
I know
it
the
didn't occur to
entire
me that they
Justice League
interacted.
situation. Like my whole Justice League, unfortunately, for the longest time, Batman never was in my mind when I thought of the Justice League
Yeah,
because he wasn't in any of the Justice League stuff that I consumed.
yeah, and that's the thing. I didn't know that Green Lantern was white because my Green Lantern was
It's
black.
not white, yeah.
And so I thought that that was Green Lantern, like he was
Yep.
Green Lantern, and that was it. And then when he wasn't, I was like, because the first time I saw Hal, I was like, who the fuck is this? It's not
That
Green
guy.
Lantern. What are we doing? Why would you make him white? Only to find out that, like, no, that's not, it's not quite how things happen. So, yeah, the first time I saw Hal, I was pissed.
I bet.
But,
Yep.
it's fine.
It is. But yeah, all that to say, that joke just really made me laugh because I was just like, they're the same.
I agree. No,
They're
it
not,
was,
but they are.
yeah, like, they're not, but I mean, we,
At
we
their
see,
core,
yeah, like, Batman walked so you could exist.
yeah,
Like that's what we're doing.
yeah.
Like you just like your thing is a bow and arrow.
Good job.
But otherwise,
That's no, you're rich and you can shoot an arrow. Like I love Green Arrow, but for billionaire capabilities, he didn't invest the way that he should have.
yeah,
Got great aim. Great
great aim. Great aim. And one of the things that I do love about Green Arrow is that he's a lot more human
aim. Hmm.
than Batman is.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Like Oliver and Green, yeah, that whole thing is just
Like
he's
he's a
killer.
yeah, like he's a
Oliver's
lot more
so
human.
chill.
Because yeah, like he will make mistakes and he's not I mean, he's skilled and all that, but like you can tell he's a human man. Like Batman is not hu like Batman can do non-human shit. Green
Yeah.
Arrow is a human man.
Yes. No, I would agree with that for sure. And that just that adds a different kind of level to him for sure.
Yeah.
That's like, yeah,
So,
yeah.
but they got to make him different some kind of way.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to do it, just to even out, definitely, even just like you said, the Walmart version, like you can't have two rich billionaires that can do literally everything under the sun and both be invincible and do out of this world stuff. So no, that's a good point, and then I do like that. It adds a likability to Oliver Green Arrow that Batman can't achieve the same way at
Yes,
all.
I absolutely agree. Um, so Lois goes to meet with President Lex, and he's like, "Oh, I would love to help. That's why I'm here."
Got you.
And one of the things that I did think was interesting, like they got me because I didn't realize Lex had been taken over. But one of the things that he said was a very Lex thing is like, oh, there's aliens taking over? Huh, funny. That's one of the very things that I've been trying to prevent. This like
Presidency.
yeah, like it's so funny that there are aliens taking over because that's like been on my like that's been my brand for a long
Hmm.
time. That's been my point with this whole Superman thing and my quote unquote obsession. Like this, y'all, malign me in the news. You slander my name. You, Lois, uh, be printing all kinds of shit about me. But this is the very thing I was talking about. This
Hmm.
right here.
Hmm.
So I would love to help, actually. It would be my pleasure
No,
to
they
help
got me
you.
too, though, like with it, because I was just like, yeah, this sounds on brand. This man, like,
Exactly.
I'll help you because it's gonna benefit me. Like
Yeah.
that's Lex.
He said, I will make you a deal.
Yep.
I
He.
will absolutely help you, but you have to endorse me
Hmm.
on my name. And I was like, that's Lex? Yep, that is, that's correct. So
Because
yeah,
Lex is willing if Lex wins.
yes,
And so yeah, I was just like, okay, yeah, that sounds like him.
same. I was like, yep, okay. Good thing Lex isn't one of them. I may have actually said like, oh, it's a good thing they haven't made it to the White House.
No, right? Like I he sounded so on brand to me.
Yeah, that was Lex. And so yeah, I was surprised whenever the announcement that was made.
Yep.
But so they make that deal, and we're taken back to the Watchtower, and Starro appears, and he's huge. And I'm guessing that this is a Starro that grows as he takes people over.
It gave off that.
And I don't know, because Starro's, I guess, whole thing is that he, arrives and siphons
Hmm.
and, but I'm like, he's not, taking life force off of people. But I guess maybe just the more people he has control of, the more powerful he is. Like, I don't,
Mind energy.
maybe that's got to be what it is. It's just mind energy.
Mind energy.
Yeah. Let's call it
Yeah.
that. The movie's got to happen. So, uh, Starro is like, and you, boy, I don't like you. So I'm gonna have to get rid of you.
Hmm.
And he has a green arrow, shoot that arrow. John takes the arrow, and Damien is like, God damn it, I was starting to like you. Why would you do that? You were my only friend other than the cow.
The cow.
And then John is like, glad you feel that way, because actually, I'm
What's
invulnerable
up?
now.
Yep.
Yeah, I found that power. You know, just a second ago. He's like, "Oh, excellent. Okay, cool, great." So they start fighting. I'm gonna say, Martian Manhunter being there, it shouldn't have gone the way it did.
No.
Like Green Arrow, Beast Boy, and even Wonder Girl, kind of like, okay, I could be convinced. But yeah, Martian Manhunter's there? Nah, that's not how it's going.
No. And again, like we already discussed previously in here, and anything I've been on with you that we've brought, like, I just, no. Like,
Yep. No,
he can do it and get out. Like, no, no.
no, that's right. Just no.
This was not my ideal Martian Manhunter representation the entire
Same. And the
movie.
movie wasn't about him. He had no speaking lines. Like he wasn't even.
Like, they didn't have to give, like, he just, it just,
I agree. It shouldn't have been like he should not have been in the room.
no. If you're going to put him in there, accurately put him in there.
Yes, it should not have been him. But
No.
whatever.
Alas.
Yeah, it's fine. Um, but yeah, because Kid Flash is another one where I'm like, no, he's gonna be a problem. But
Hmm.
whatever. Lex gets on TV and Lex is basically like, it's coming to my attention that,
Audio.
and then yeah, like
You'll have to go back a little bit.
it has come to my attention that an alien has started, taking over. And I'm here to let you know it is time. And that's when, a bunch of people start Yeah, they started
Oh, I
showing.
hated it so much every time they did it.
Yeah, they started showing their faces. And Lois had, hairspray and a lighter, which was
Love
funny. Because whenever they were like, and she's got a lighter, it's like, she was like, I've been trying to stop smoking. I was like, okay. And then when we found out why that was, I was like, oh, okay. That makes sense.
it. Right.
So she tries to, burn the Starro and is like, John, I know you can hear me. They are hurt by heat. That is how I'm free because you used your heat vision.
Right.
So he's like, heat vision it is. And
Let me say though, I was like, Lois, you're attacking this president on live TV. And then the speech was so funny to me. Like, I know she was like, I hope my son's watching this, but like the way she went into it, but I was just like, she just hairspray fireballed the president
she did.
for the world to see.
She did. And lu
Lois.
I mean, luckily, I guess a lot of people were Starroed.
I guess.
Like those are the people that weren't bothered. But yeah,
I just
I
was just like, you're wild for that girl. That's what I was just like, whew.
but it made me wonder if his security detail, the ones that was checking stuff, like was he Starroed? He
They had to, right? Like,
had
I
to be.
I just it was wild when she was like, I already knew you were, and like still burnt it, which I know the whole point was to get a message to Jonathan, but I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. It was weird.
Yeah.
Because my thought, like she said, I knew you were Starroed when you took the meeting. I was like, no, Lex would have taken that meeting.
Yeah, yeah. There's no version of Lex that I have personally encountered that would not have said yes, wouldn't have said less yet. Like if he knew he could get something out of it, he would definitely say yes to Lois.
Yeah, because it's Lois.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And he likes a challenge, so he's like, what do you got for me?
yeah,
Like,
like again, it was Lex until it just wasn't.
yeah.
Like, but taking the meeting, very Lex thing
On
to do.
brand.
Yeah, like it made sense to me. So I was like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
But also Starro was just kind of like trying to say whatever he could to make stuff happen and trick people. So, um, sorry, John lasers the Starro on Martian Manhunter, and that does knock him out, but the Starro doesn't come off of him.
Right.
So that's when I was like, uh-oh, it's not,
It's not
it's
gonna be
not
that
as
easy.
effective. Yeah, it's not because it didn't hit the same way that Lois's did. So, Robin and John go and they're like, all right, we've got to find the hive mind. We were able to knock everybody else out. And they end up in a boss fight with Batman and Superman. And it is not going well for them.
Nope.
But yeah, they are able to win the day because they're like, hey, let's
Let's
switch
switch
partners.
partners.
And I was like, I knew that that's how that was going to end.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they're able to switch partners. Again, this is whenever you mentioned that Batman got an uppercut and it was
I did
just,
not like how that looked. It just didn't look good.
yeah. I'm not even talking about the fight itself because it wasn't spectacular.
It was very underwhelming for me.
And I think, again, that is one of the challenges with this art style.
Okay. And like um I couldn't pinpoint necessarily through these. I'm learning you've given me multiple different art styles to look at. And so obviously this isn't one I was familiar with and I don't gauge necessarily if that's what was not obviously I it could have been a lot of what it was since I didn't like that one punch, but I was just like it was a very lackluster
Yeah, and
battle for me.
and sometimes like it could be a good art style that facilitates excellent fight choreography, and then the fight choreography itself just isn't good.
Right.
So, but this is a situation where it was. I think the animation contributed to the lackluster fight choreography.
Okay. Yeah.
But they win the fight, and they find Starro finds them, and he's massive.
Hmm.
And again, he was massive, the first time, but like he's huge.
He's extra massive now.
And so he starts lasering him and is like, ha.
I did like the lasering though in that moment because like it happened immediately after that punch, and I was like, oh, I hated that punch. But then I liked the look of the laser though. I was like, that looks good though.
Yeah. And yeah, the laser is pretty ineffective. He's
Yep.
like, Star's basically like, I'm too much now. This not gonna work.
Hmm.
So back to what I was doing. So they're like, all right, we can push the watchtower into the atmosphere, and the burning that will be created should be enough heat to stop him. Cool. So they, make that thing happen. They send it into the atmosphere, and Starro, starts trying to attack them. And as it re-enters the atmosphere, he just immediately starts getting hurt. But the boys weren't. And Superboy being able to take it is one thing.
But Damien
Damien just kind of being unaffected by the same shit that was killing
should
Starro.
have been happening.
I am confused. But the movie needed to
The
happen.
movie needed.
So, um, we see Robin and John be like, "Hey, this was a one-way trip." So I had fun. You had fun? Yep. Okay. This is what it's gonna be. And everybody else who, got detached from their Starro was unconscious. Superman and Batman, no, they're just
No,
immediately
they're
ready to
available.
go.
I would like to make a quick note, a quick homage to Jimmy again, because I loved him and his little stapler and him being like, yeah.
Yep.
I think, again, that was good Jimmy writing, and it was a good Jimmy. Like that, I was just like, you go, Jimmy. You're just so hopeful, and that you got that done.
I think I agree. I like that. Yeah, that was Jimmy. He was ready,
Oh, yeah.
as ready as one can be in that situation.
His little, that's a staple gun of sorts.
I mean, yeah. And as far as he knows, he got it done.
Yep. But I want to make that note before, yeah, Superman and Batman are just available and fully conscious
Yeah,
and
ready to
ready
go.
to go. Which, again, you could argue, okay, Superman being a little more conscious, like, sure. But again, Batman, Bruce, why are you awake?
Yeah. What are we doing? But
What are
whatever.
you doing?
Again, the movie's got to happen. Like both of those things were points where I was like, really? That's what we're doing? Like Damien's fine
Mhm,
and Starro's burning, and
mhm.
they're like in the same. Okay. Oh, and
After Starro was able to enter the atmosphere initially with Superman,
yeah,
and now he can't, but the human Damien
yeah,
chilling.
fine. Okay,
Okay.
that's cool. That's fine. So, and I guess it's a situation where like Starro's hurt but can survive. But yeah. Anyway, um, so they are like, "Yep, this is it." And then Superman comes to save them. And then, "Dad, I missed you." So, everything's good there. And then Starro, pops back up and is like, "Hey, I'm still here."
Yep.
And I feel like Starro should have probably been smaller since Starro didn't have any mind
To
juice.
control at that point.
Yeah, but that's fine.
I also don't think Starro should have been alive anymore at that point. I said, LOL. What do you mean he's back?
What do you mean? What are we doing?
It felt very kitschy of just like the hee hee, let's just have one more little thing.
Yep, we gotta do one more call back.
Yep.
Just to show that he's not gonna strike out this time.
Yep.
And so, Batman and Damien, they, throw some stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. We're gonna throw a couple things, contribute. And then basically Superman is like, "Hey, I'm gonna throw him to you, and then you're gonna hit him really hard."
Hmm.
And he's like, Got it. He picks up a tree, and they do that thing, and then Starro goes blasting off again. So if Starro survived entering the atmosphere and Starro was on the outside of the ship that arrived,
Mm.
like that Superman was on when he got there, I'm pretty sure while Starro got hit really hard, Starro's fine.
Yep.
And we're just cool with that
Chilling.
because John was able to show that he can, in fact, hit, a fastball. That
A
was
huge moving target with a huge item to hit. But yeah.
that was the moral of the story.
Mm-hmm.
Was that okay? Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever. This is a movie for babies, I think is what I had to chalk that up to.
Mm-hmm.
And so everybody goes to John's game. Everything's fine. Everybody wins. Everything's fine. The day's saved. Um, he has super strength now, so he just like barely taps the ball, and
Mm-hmm.
that thing flies to the fence, and then he runs because I guess he didn't have super speed yet. So he runs and hits the bases. I thought it was funny that Damien made that weird comment that nobody understood. Hit it like it's a weird invading space alien.
I know.
But Damien doesn't know how to socially interact.
No.
So I was like, yeah,
That checks. That
Damien probably would say some weird shit like that.
yeah.
And I also thought it was funny that the Teen Titans were like, so we had a meeting and we
Yep.
decided that you should probably be a part of the Titans now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all he really wanted. But he can't admit that. He can't say
No.
that.
No.
But and then we get a cute little moment of like, "Hey, we're the dynamic duo," and he's like, "No, the Batman and Robin are the dynamic
Yep.
duo. We are the Super Sons." I was like, oh, "That's the name of the movie."
Love when they do that.
And he's like, "And I never got you a birthday gift." Push. I was like, "That was funny."
My note on that is Damien, you punk.
That's what I was like. He's such a dick,
100%.
but that's who he is.
Yep.
So, and then yeah, there were no after credit scenes. Again, this movie stands alone. As far as I know, there there is not a sequel as of recording. Who
Mm-hmm.
knows what'll happen?
Mm-hmm.
I would assume this movie was not successful enough to facilitate one, but also Batman Ninja got a sequel. I do not know how. That movie was a travesty. Um, it was a great time to review, but watching it is a chore. And that movie got a sequel, so who knows?
Who knows?
But Cassidy,
Yeah.
scale of 1 to 10, what are we thinking?
Let me preface some stuff. I laughed harder at this than I have in some of the other films, be it unintentionally, be it intentionally. But as we discussed, there were a lot of that character wouldn't act that way in any circumstance that I've ever seen them in, and I didn't love that for a lot of it. Didn't love, especially now that you told me this was a standalone. There's a lot of stuff that I was like, I feel like could have used better setup on some things. Um, I didn't enjoy some characters that I typically enjoy a lot, which I know they weren't the focus. I understand that. But that leads back to the you aren't acting how you have canonically always acted, and why is this the spot that you're not being yourself in? Um, I also thought there were some cheap grabs of things of that big final battle of situations. Definitely, I would like how is Damien fine? Why did he come back to life? Like that felt like such a dumb pardon me, but dumb moment of just like, just die or go away. Like I'm over this so much right now. Like, um, and I definitely think I liked this the least of the movies you have provided me thus far. Um, and as we have talked about it more, I realized I liked it even less probably than I did. So I don't know if I'm being generous or not to put it at about a five, for my own standings of things. It's definitely of the ones I have watched with you thus far, the I don't want to say the word worst, but it is of the least
Least good.
quality.
It is the
Yeah.
least good.
Yes.
Okay.
Like I would watch it again for some of the laughs. Like it was, I had a fun time, but as a DC situation of the things I've watched in the animated world and outside of it, I was like, that was that.
Uh-huh. Okay. Um, I am trying to decide between like 5.5 and 6.
Yeah.
Um, I I didn't hate it. I'm gonna go 5.5
Okay.
because there was some pretty glaring issues I had with it. Um,
That makes me feel really better though, because I feel like I've always rated higher than you on all of these.
and
I think
you
this is the
know,
closest we've been on one of these two.
and that's fine. Again, there are a lot of times where I'm like, I can't have people on just all the good ones.
Oh no, 100%.
But yeah, like I like to see the range. I like to show people that while there's a lot of good stuff in DC animation, there's also some not so good
Hmm.
stuff in and that's the game.
Hmm.
When you've got a catalog this large, there are some misses
There's gonna be,
sometimes.
yeah.
But and a lot of, again, sometimes I enjoy reviewing the movie than the movie.
This was a great, yeah, this was, I got more laughs. I mentioned the laughs of the movie, but I got way more laughs talking about just how problematic and with some of these storylines and characters, like it just, and I'm not as knowledgeable as you are, but the things that I do know, Lex, Martian Manhunter, generally speaking, like Oliver too, like I'm just like, these are not things that work.
Yeah. And I think more specifically the Lex stuff for you,
I
like,
hated it.
and again, I agree. Like, no, that's not that was weird to me.
And I told you right off the bat, I was like, this Lex is just not, it already didn't feel like a Lex, and then it wasn't acting like a Lex
Yeah.
because it was acting like a Lex. And like, it just like, I don't,
Yeah.
they didn't do what they thought they were doing with it. They weren't writing a proper, yeah,
I agree.
yeah.
Okay. Well, cool. Anything else on the movie?
uh, the cow did make me laugh, but again, why was it there?
Why are you here? What are we doing?
Like,
Again, yeah, the cow was the I was like,
especially now, because with these things, I need you to tell me on some of them whether or not it's something I'm just not familiar with, and the fact that the cow is just a standalone existence in this one moment. Why a cow? Why here? Okay. Is it just to be like, okay, Jonathan can milk things. He's useful.
I really feel like that was what it was like Damien had a pet cow so that Jonathan's farm knowledge could be relevant.
Cool.
I didn't need it.
It was
Like,
so unnecessary.
because the cow added nothing. Like, that was, those were, I mean, the cow was maybe on screen for 30 seconds, but like, I didn't need it.
They're very pointless.
Yeah, y'all could have put that in the credits.
Yep.
Yeah, so
No, and I stand by, I really, again, I think it's, I haven't experienced a poor situation when it comes to a good Jimmy character, but I did enjoy the Jimmy character here. I didn't care for uh, the Lois of it all. I didn't, yeah, like it just, they weren't. who they were to me and how there's stereotypes to these characters that have existed for so long, and to have them act so outside of that, it was weird vibes. And also, again, that last battle really put me at the end of it. I was like, why? Oh,
Yeah.
I'm still alive. I'm like, shut up. Right when it popped up, I was like, you're kidding me. Like, my
That's
guy.
that's so funny that you were like, shut up.
No, like I was like, just fake your death, fake your death. Like, just it would have done more for me if they had that in battle. They had their little father-son bonding moment that they were having beforehand. You go, they're playing baseball, da da. He pushes Clark off the water or the green thing, and then the last shot is Starro like getting out of the pond, and I'm like, that is how you tell me he's still alive.
Yes.
Not, oh, guys, you just put me through hell. Try again. Oh, you're all awake now, though. I don't know.
I agree, because that would have led us to a sequel.
It was so. Yeah, it put me off. I was like, no, don't.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree. Like that was not the right thing to do. But, you know,
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah. But that's my final thought. My final wraparound.
Yeah. And I want to say this movie may have been PG-13.
It had to have been higher than PG because of how Lois was talking to Jonathan through the TV. Because I was like, oh, this is a kiddo movie. And then Lois was like, not like super verbally graphic, but I was like, whoa, 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 Lois, chill.
But yeah, like I think that yeah, there were some cuss words in it that made
Yeah.
me oh, this might be PG-13, but it felt like a movie for babies.
Yeah, it felt like a kid's. Yeah.
But okay, whatever. That's
Trying to
fine.
hit everybody, I guess. Like,
Yes.
mm.
But anyway, in the next episode, we will be discussing Legion of Superheroes. So until then, salutations.